All right, we are live. Okay, welcome everyone to Outspoken, the Publishing Triangle's monthly reading series hosted by yours truly, the Bureau of General Services Queer Division. That's my name. I also go by Greg Newman. My partner, Donnie Jochum, is the co-founder of the Bureau. We've been in this lovely spot since 2014, and we've been in existence since 2012, thanks to your support. So we are supported by donations, by sales, by the center. We take support from all the places that provide it to us. We do have a suggested donation of $10 tonight. I'm going to pass this around. I know most of you are readers, and usually we don't ask the readers, but if you can, give what you can. Those of you online can also give by Venmo at BGSQD. And that just helps us to keep doing what we're doing, keep the store full of books, new books, and keep our equipment functioning. So I'll pass this around. And if you are not yet on our email list and you would like to be, you can sign up for that at the back of the room or on our website, which is bgsqd.com. And you'll get an email every other Monday about our many upcoming events. So before I introduce Rob Burns from the Publishing Triangle, I wanted to read a land acknowledgement. So the Bureau acknowledges that our organization operates on the unceded land of the Munsee Lenape. We encourage you to join the Bureau in signing up to make a monthly donation to the American Indian Community Houses Mannahatta Fund. The Mannahatta Fund, according to its website, is an invitation to all settlers and non-native people who wish to acknowledge the legacy of theft and genocide that comprise the history of New York City and the United States. And you can find out more at mannahattafund.org. We also want to recognize that today is the 104th day of Israel's genocidal campaign against the Palestinian people, funded by our tax dollars and with our government's unwavering support. We hope that you will join us in calling for an immediate and permanent ceasefire, an end to the siege, and an end to the occupation in order to end. Yes, that too. An end to the collective punishment of the Palestinians and to ensure the swift delivery of much needed food, water, medicine, fuel, and medical aid to the people of Gaza. And now, please give it up for Rob Burns.
Welcome to, sorry, too close. Welcome to our latest version of Outspoken. Great series. We are, the Publishing Triangle's been very excited to be hosting this since October. And we have 6 great writers in our lineup tonight. Before I go any further, though, 2 things. First, you can't see this, but I can walk closer. Yay. It's a book called How to Resist Amazon and Why. All the more reason you should please buy books from your independent booksellers, especially the Bureau of General Services Queer Division, but other booksellers out there. By the way, let me add that what Greg did not mention, the Bureau of General Services Queer Division is a nonprofit. The books you buy are taxable, but your donations are tax deductible. So think about that when you're thinking about who to support. Another book I pulled off their pile is Getting In by David Kennerly, which is NYC Club Flyers from the gay 90s. I mention this because David just became a member of the Publishing Triangle in December. Your $40 membership helps us do all the things that our voluntary board and we don't have a staff. That our voluntary board does to promote queer literature throughout the year. And with that, I should also note that Carol Rosenfeld, our chair, our longtime chair, is here. So Carol, wave, yeah, thank you. Okay, so, thank you.
I'm so sorry.
I'm actually, no, I just realized, I thought I was getting feedback. Now I hear it's people dancing or something. That's okay. No.
Perfect time for losing.
Let's get, let's get to our meeting. Our first reader will be Felice Cohen. Known nationally and internationally as the woman who lived in one of the world's smallest apartments, Felice Cohen is the award-winning author of the best-selling books Half In, a coming-of-age memoir of forbidden love, 90 Lessons for Living Large in 90 Square Feet or More. 90 square feet is like average for New York City, though. So that's, and What Papa Told Me. What Papa Told Me has been endorsed by Elie Wiesel and Yad Vashem in Israel, is taught in schools across the country, has been translated into Polish, and has sold over 35,000 copies around the world. Felice has been featured on Good Morning America, NBC, CBS, NPR, Time, Globe, and the Mail. And the New York Daily News, the Daily Mail, and more. She also speaks around the country about how living tiny made her life larger, as well as offering tips on organizing and decluttering. What enabled Felice to live large and have tiny studios is that she's been a professional organizer for over 25 years. She splits her time between New York City and Cape Cod, and she'll be reading from Half In, a coming-of-age memoir of forbidden love. And now please welcome Felice Cohen.
Thank you, Rob. Thanks for having me. I thought I'd be late because I just gave a talk on the Holocaust on my grandfather's book, which, it's important that we still talk about, especially since October 7th, because it was been eerily familiar, some of these stories. I'm going to read tonight from Half In on a little lighter note. When I was 23, I had a secret affair with my boss, a woman who was 34 years older than I was. And it took me about 30 years to tell this story. The scene I am going to read tonight is when we are caught by her partner. Because that was fun, so why not relive it? Okay. Saturday night, I picked Sarah up from Bradley Airport. Linda was staying on a few extra nights in Florida, as usual, with friends. I was excited to get to play house with Sarah for 2 nights. "Hello, boys, Mama's home," Sarah said, greeting each cat with a kiss before carrying her luggage into the bedroom, me close behind. "Tell me about your trip," I said, and got into my side, fine Linda side of the bed. It was okay. Sarah unzipped her suitcase and removed her blue and white toiletry bag. "I spent the entire time counting down the minutes until I could see you." While Sarah showered, I practiced my breathing per my therapist Barbara's instructions. After 2 minutes, to my surprise, a stillness settled through me. Sarah came into the bedroom, tossed her robe onto the bed, and pulled back the covers. Just as our bodies were fitting together, the phone rang. She grabbed her bathrobe and the phone and walked out to talk to Linda. My calmness flew out the window. Why did I continue to torture myself? Now, where were we? Sarah got back into bed minutes later as though the call had never happened. Then she saw my face. "What's wrong, Blue?" "I feel cheated. You have everything, a home, vacations, anniversaries. And what do I have? Letters hidden in my closet, the truth concealed in my heart. All I do is wait for any chance I can get to be with you. What kind of life is that?" I slapped my hands on the bed. Cody and Sammy, curled near my feet, lifted their heads. I hate that the little time we have is rushed, that I'm constantly wondering when we'll meet again and never appreciating the time we have. I'm also having second thoughts about working again as the night director this summer. It's hard being around you. I want you before work and after work. Sneaking around makes me feel as though I don't exist. If you loved me then, I stopped as I always did, but my anger gave me a surge of confidence. You'd let me go. As the words left my mouth, it became clear, like the clean daylight when clouds had passed, that my freedom was altogether my decision. I didn't need to be let go. I only needed to let go. Perhaps you're right. Sarah shrank back onto her stack of pillows as though the air inside her had escaped. I only seem to make it harder for you. I've been such a fool. Go back to your life. What life? I reached for her, my heart filling with dread at the thought of a future in which we were no longer together. Our hands were soon touching, grabbing, tugging each other closer, our tears and fears fueling our passion, sadness, our new foreplay. No gentle kisses or caresses, just harried movements fueled by anger and needs. We were trying to merge into one as though that would prove we belonged together, as though that would make it right. We split apart, our breathing rapid, energy depleted like animals after a fight. Sex had become our go-to cure to assuage arguments. If we were any other couple, we would have met each other's friends by now, maybe moved in together, started planning a future, but that wasn't possible, not for us. Blue, Sarah sighed into the darkness. My life has changed because of you, and if it were doable, I'd change even more for you. The problem is I have 30 years too many wrinkles. Hearing you say you want out makes it sound like I put you in a place you don't want to be, and since I'm in love with you, I should try to help by doing something. But what? By deciding Linda or me. But Sarah would never leave Linda. I recognize that now. I might have been her heart, but Linda was her family, and that pull was stronger. Sarah had committed herself to Linda years ago. They might have had a sexless union, but they had a life together, a home, cats, friends. I couldn't compete with that. If I were to have any peace, I had to end it. It would be hard, but it would only get harder. I break up with Sarah in the morning. What other choice did I have besides more heartache? With my decision made, I fell into a deep sleep, certain this would be our last night together. The shouting woke me. I bolted upright and reached for Sarah, but found only cool, rumpled sheets. I squinted at the cable box. It glowed a blurry 2:48 a.m. I was about to call out for Sarah when the shouting stopped. Silence, except for the low purring of the cats on the bed. I relaxed, assuming it was the television, but soon the shouting picked up again, and I heard Sarah trying to quiet the source. Who was screaming? Then I knew. Linda, the legitimate partner, the one expected to be away 2 more days, had come home in the middle of the night. She'd seen us in their bed. We'd been caught, the truth exposed. The cat was out of the bag. I dressed in the dark, my trembling hands fumbling to button my jeans. A shadow appeared through the fabric covering on the French doors. I held my breath, my personal Hitchcock movie. Only after Sarah slipped inside did I exhale. Linda's home, Sarah said with perfect composure, sliding her hands into the pockets of her bathrobe, the same robe she'd removed hours earlier in her hurry to make love to me. I'm sorry, I said. You have nothing to be sorry about. You did nothing wrong. Sarah brushed her hand across my cheek. I'll call you. As I was leaving, I was hesitant to look in the sunroom, but saw Linda anyway, crestfallen on the chaise, head in her hands. That was our doing. I thought I was a kind person, not even close. Outside, I half expected my tires to be slashed, but Linda was too nice to do something that spiteful. On the drive home, except for a few glassy-eyed raccoons and possums crossing the road, the streets were empty. Who else but rodents and cheaters would be out in the middle of the night? At the top of the notch, I pulled over, opened my car door, and threw up on the side of the road. Nauseated as I was also relieved. Now the lies could stop. At least that's what I thought. I confessed everything, Blue. Sarah called later that morning from the payphone at the deli when she picked up the Times, the same phone she'd called me from every Sunday for the last few months. I pulled the covers over my head as though that would shield me from the mess my life had become. What's going to happen now? I asked. Not sure. I pictured Sarah running her free hand through her hair, but whatever happens, it doesn't change how I feel about you. I still love you. Sarah promised to call later and hung up. My stomach churned. Had Linda not caught us when I had really broken up with Sarah that morning? Who was I kidding? I called the only person I could in that situation. Linda found us in bed together last night. I feel sick, I said to my uncle. But isn't that a good thing, Mark said? Now you can be together. How? Once everyone finds out I'm the reason they broke up, they're all going to hate me. I curled into a fetal position to alleviate the pain sluicing through my abdomen. Am I messed up or what? Not at all. This isn't easy, but this angst you're feeling would go away if you said screw it to what others thought. As if I could just snap my fingers and years of worrying what others thought about me would simply vanish. Changing behavior doesn't happen overnight. Even now, decades later, I still care about the judgment of others. Isn't it human nature to want to be liked?
When you hear turns of phrase like my personal Hitchcock moment, you just know you're with the writer, right? Thank you, Felice. You know, I try to be very careful in getting everyone's quick bios together. And the one person I neglected to do that with was Michael Thomas Ford, who will be our next reader. Mostly because I think everyone already knows all about Michael Thomas Ford. You probably know back in 2000, oh God, what was it, 2010, 2011, he stole an Emmy from me.
Oh, I should have.
And that was actually the funniest. There were 5 people that were finalists as usual, and Lammy, that was that year for Gay Mystery. Mike, me, Greg Heron, Josh Terabas, and a guy we didn't know we called Fifth Guy. We still call the 5th guy, and I can't remember his name for the life of me. And we just had the most fun over those, like, I don't know, 7-8 weeks of the competition. I think everyone had read Mike's book and knew he was going to win. We were pretty, smart that way, but it was just so much fun. When I left that day, the late Richard Labonte was in the lobby, and I stopped and said hi, and Richard was very, I'm sorry, I guess it just wasn't your year. I'm like, no, you don't understand how much joy we all took. That's what writers do when they're, well, not 5th guy won, maybe we all feel different, I don't know. Anyway, Mike has so many books. His newest book, Every Star That Falls, YA, which is a sequel to his acclaimed book, Suicide Notes. Tonight he's going to be reading from his story, Be Not Afraid, which is from the forthcoming YA anthology, We Mostly Come Out at Night, 15 Queer Tales of Monsters, Angels, and Other Creatures, edited by Rob Costello and published by Running Press. Please welcome my friend and the legendary Michael Thomas Ford.
3 things. Number 1, I am stealing Crestfallen on the Chase for a memoir title. Because that is the gayest thing I've ever heard of. Second of all, we never found out who 5th guy was, did we?
Ralph something.
He wrote this point, wasn't it called The Orchid Thief? Or
Something like
Orchid
that,
something?
yeah. Something.
And for months, this was before the internet, really, right? So we were trying to find this dude. We were like, was it one of our friends went in under a pseudonym? And we never found him. And I don't think he ever wrote another book. It was just it's kind of a mystery. So, thirdly, I am having horrible flashbacks because I used to live in New York. And I left in 1995, and I have not been in this building for 30 years. And I've been having this weird, I'm in town for the Mystery Writers of America board meeting. And I thought, I'm going to go to the places I used to go when I lived here. And I thought none of them will be there, right? Well, yesterday, or maybe it was this morning, I don't even know. Time is meaningless.
This morning.
In 1986, I went to college outside of New York, and I will keep this short as I can. I went to college outside of the city in Westchester, And we decided to come into the city to go get our haircut at Astor Place Hair, because we had heard that that's where the punks went. And we went to a Christian college, so we were like, we're gonna be punks. And we did that, and we went to Magical Child Bookstore. I don't know if any of you remember Magical Child, but it was a witchcraft bookstore. And we were like, we're gonna be witches. And so we went there, and then we went to Astor Place and got our haircut, and this woman named Bella cut my hair. And I thought, I think about her a lot because it was kind of a New York thing for me to like go to New York and live in New York and you get your haircut at Astor Place and it's my thing, right? All right. So I thought she can't possibly be alive because she seemed old then, right? So I Googled it and I found a video of her cutting hair last year. So this morning I went and Bella cut my hair for the first time in 29 years. And it was so weird. And then last night, my friend Catherine and I used to come to the center all the time, 35 years ago. And I was saying, do you remember listening to Pam Sneed stand here doing her Harriet Tubman thing she used to do? And I remember Jackie Woodson reading her first stories here, and I'm gonna cry. But it was like, I got my first HIV test here. I used to volunteer on the membership committee with some guy named Greg, who I can't remember his last name. So just walking in here is very weird for me because I'm old and I'm not dead. And I thought that I would be, because, you know, I moved here when I was 20 and everybody was dying. And all of the writers that, I'm gonna cry again, all of the writers that I should be friends with are dead. Like, David Feinberg and all these people. And we thought we were gonna move here and, you know, have this community and we were all dying. And I'm not dead. So, I have a whole new community. I have all these people that I never thought I would have. And Rob, I've known you for years now and just everything. Anyway, I'm really happy to be here. So, even though I'm crying, I'm very happy. And that's Steve Berman, who is one of my editors. And it's just like all these things, right? Oh, and for dinner, we went to Cowgirl, which is one of the first restaurants I went to in New York City, and it's still fucking here. And I had the same thing. I had fried chicken. Okay, so anyway, now that I cried and acted a fool, this is a YA story. So Rob Costello wanted to do a story about queer monsters. He wanted to do an anthology about queer kids meeting monsters and becoming friends with them and them becoming something. Anyway, I live in Ohio now, which is not at all like New York. And so I live on the Ohio-West Virginia border. And so our dude is Mothman. Mothman is like our thing. So my story is about Mothman. It's called Be Not Afraid, which is from that whole bullshit thing about the shepherds and the angel and whatever. Okay. Now that I've taken up all my time, I'm gonna read now. Oh, and I did my first reading. And at that store that was down the street, that I can't remember the name of. Different Light, where I met my first boyfriend, which was a disaster, and he's dead now. So, okay, Be Not Afraid. Take out all the yellow ones, Mama says, put these in. She takes a box of Christmas bulbs out of the plastic grocery sack from the Dollar General and sets it on the kitchen table beside the tangled string of lights I'm trying my best to work apart. They're lined with green, blue, red, and yellow bulbs. What color do you want me to replace them with? I ask her. Don't matter, she says, and takes a draw on the cigarette in her mouth. She blows the smoke out, and it settles over the table like smog. I wish she would quit, but she won't, even though her cough has been getting worse and worse. She won't go to the doctor anymore either, because as she says, you don't know nothing I don't already know. What she means is that she's probably going to die before too long. Maybe not next month or even next year, but more likely than not, she won't be around to see me graduate from high school in 2 years. But that's not something we talk about, just like we don't talk about what will happen to me and Pike if she does. With our parents gone, she's the only relative we have. Since Pike is 18 and technically an adult, I guess he'll be in charge of taking care of things then. Except that Pike is the one who needs taken care of, and I've been looking out for myself since I was 12. As much as I love Mama, and I love her more than just about anything, she's not exactly the caretaker. Most of the time, I feel like the only adult in the house, and I'm not even old enough to drive. Shouldn't we be replacing the red ones, I say? I thought his eyes were red. Mama shakes her head, taps her ash into the empty Ale-8-1 can beside her. That statue they got over in Point Pleasant makes everyone think that, she says. Those Blanco glass eyes and all, but they're yellow. She pauses, takes another puff of her cigarette. At least they were when I seen him. Suppose he might look different to different people. Him. What she means is Mothman, but we don't say his name around here. Mama thinks it's bad luck. One time, maybe a year after our parents died, I did say it, and she slapped my face so hard I couldn't breathe for half a minute. I just stood there looking at her, face all twisted up in anger and fear. Don't, she said. Don't call him. Not ever. Mama and Mothman have a history. She was 5 years old in 1967, the year the Silver Bridge linking Point Pleasant, West Virginia, with Gallipolis, Ohio, collapsed a little more than a week before Christmas. 46 people died in the tragedy, including one of Mama's cousins, Toomey, who was driving a beer delivery truck across the bridge when it went down and dumped everyone on it into the Ohio River. For a year before the bridge accident, people reported seeing a big winged creature with glowing eyes in the area. Somewhere along the way, they started calling it Mothman. Then they decided that Mothman must have been showing up to warn everybody about the bridge. I don't know why exactly, but the idea stuck. And ever since then, Mothman coming around has been linked to bad things happening, especially for Mama, who was kind of obsessed with him. First because of what happened to Toomey, and then because she says she saw him not long before my parents died. She didn't bring that up until after their funeral, though, so I'm not sure what to think about it. I don't have any particular feelings about Mothman one way or another. He's a big deal around here and brings a lot of tourists to Point Pleasant, where they've got a museum and the statue Mama mentioned. He's our monster the way Scotland has its Nessie and New Jersey has its devil. And since we don't have a whole lot to call our own here, I guess that's a good thing. But sometimes I think people use him as something to blame their bad luck on, when blaming the real problems is too hard. Anyway, the Christmas lights thing is new and has come about because this is the first year we've done anything for the holidays since my parents died. Christmas was always my mama's thing, and with her gone, Mama couldn't bring herself to do it. The boxes of ornaments have been in the attic. But a few days ago, she asked me and Pike to get them down, and now the artificial tree is up in the living room waiting to be decorated. I pull a yellow bulb out and drop it into the plastic margarine container on the table. I stick a blue light in where that one was. I'm taking out another yellow one when the door bangs open and Pike walks in. There you are, he says. What the fuck are you doing? He doesn't wait for me to answer before saying, come on, we're going for a ride. My stomach knots up. What Pike means is that he picked up another delivery from Wart and now he needs to make a run to take the drugs to his buyers. And he needs me to hold them because I'm only 15, and if we get stopped by the cops and they search us, I'm supposed to say they're mine. That way Pike won't get arrested. It's a stupid game, and we're lucky that we've never been stopped. Eventually, though, our luck is going to run out. It always does. And while I won't go to jail, I could end up in a mess of trouble. But Pike doesn't think about that. He never thinks more than one step ahead. Daddy always said that was why he was a lousy deer hunter and never got any. Those deer are 3 steps ahead, he always said. That makes them 2 steps smarter than you, Pike. I know arguing with Pike is useless, so I get up and take my coat from the hook beside the door. I'll help you when I get back, I tell Mama. She nods and continues replacing the lights. Is this that stupid Mothman bullshit again? Pike asks as we walk to his truck. Yeah, I say as I open the door of the beat-up Ford and climb into the passenger seat. Pike gets in, fishes in the pocket of his oil-stained Carhartt jacket, and hands me a plastic bag filled with half a dozen smaller bags of small white crystals. Meth, Wart's specialty. I tuck it into my pocket and put my seatbelt on. Safety first, Pike teases as he starts the truck and starts down the driveway. His own seatbelt hangs unused beside him. I don't say anything. I've stopped begging Pike to worry about himself, but it bothers me that he does things like this. Our parents died in a wreck, and it's like he's daring the universe to take him too. I don't get it. We're making 2 stops, Pike says as we head down the road. You stay in the truck, it'll be quick. I nod, I know the drill. Pike does all the actual work. I'm just the fall guy if he needs one, just along for the ride. I hate that we have to do this, but we do. We have the same bills to pay that everyone does, and most months there's barely enough to cover them. Usually Mamaw waits until they threaten to turn off the water or electric before she pays those, and the assistance we get for food doesn't go as far as it needs to. We also have some bills other people don't, like one of the medicines Mamaw needs that her insurance won't cover. She tried going without it, but she got sicker and sicker. Finally, Pike went to Wart and asked him for a loan to pay for it. Wart gave it to him on the condition that Pike come to work for him. Pike's been doing that ever since. I wish he would get a real job, but real jobs are hard to come by around here. And jobs that pay as well as what Pike makes from doing this are almost non-existent. Pike told Mamaw he talked to the insurance company and got them to pay for her medicine. I think she probably knows this isn't true, but she doesn't ask, just like she never asked where Pike and I are going on our rides. We used to come back with at least a pop or a bag of chips to make it look like we made a junk food run, but we don't even do that anymore. We come to Hapsburg and drive through town, passing stores and houses decorated for Christmas. A plastic Santa waves from a porch. In some of the windows, I can see Christmas trees, the lights twinkling. I wonder how many of them have no yellow bulbs. Probably, I think, just ours. Then we turn onto a side street. Where are we going? I ask Pike, but I'm afraid I already know the answer. Pike doesn't answer me, confirming what I fear. He drives until he stops in front of a house I know very well. The porch is hung with colored lights, including yellow, and in the yard an inflatable Grinch stands almost to the roof, grinning at us. Pike holds out his hand, and I give him the bag from my pocket. He takes a couple of baggies out and hands me back the rest. Then he gets out and walks up the steps. He knocks on the door and a dog barks. Trixie. She's a German Shepherd mix. If she knew I was here, she'd go nuts, wanting me to scratch her behind the ears the way she likes. The door opens and Mrs. Clark appears. She darts her eyes toward the truck and I wave. She doesn't wave back, just hands Pike some folded up bills and he drops the baggies into her hand in return. Then she's gone and Pike is walking back to the truck. I wait until we're back on the main street headed for our next stop before I ask, did she see if she's heard anything from Burley? Pike shakes his head. Nothing. I mean, she didn't say, so I guess not. Burley is Mrs. Clark's boy, my best friend, a lot more than my best friend, although that part is a little confusing. Confusing enough that Burley ran off a couple of months ago after he got into a fight with his parents about it. I don't say anything else as Pike drives to the next house and makes the second deal. 20 minutes later, we're home again, and I go into the house to find Mamaw asleep in the recliner in front of the TV. There's a burning cigarette in her hand, the inch-long ash dangling like a broken finger. I take it and drop it into the AL81 can on the coffee table. I take the crocheted Afghan from the back of the couch and lay it over Mamaw, then I go to my room. On my bedside table is the copy of John Crowley's novel Little Big that Burley left on my bed the night he went away. It's his own copy, battered and taped together, because it's his favorite book and he's read it I don't know how many times. The pages are smudged with orange Cheeto dust from Burley's fingers, the cover torn, the spine crooked from being held open. It's the most important thing Burley owns, and he left it as a promise that someday he would come back for it and for me. And if you want to find out what happens and what Mothman has to do with it all, you can buy whatever the book is called. We'll keep changing the title. We mostly come out at night. Yes.
I'm just glad after, it's a tough city and I'm always glad people can still feel sentimental about it. And I'm also glad that the same person's around to cut your hair after 20 some odd years.
Oh my God, that's so weird.
And
she looks exactly the same. Like exactly.
I had to leave my guy like a few years ago and he'd been around for a while and suddenly I was looking like I should have been in Deliverance, so I'm paying more money now, but it's worth it. Our next up is our, excuse me, our guest who, because it's January, our guest who couldn't be here tonight because Amtrak shut down. Uh, 5 inches of snow, when I grew up in Rochester, what we'd call August. But apparently snow is coming to New York, so Amtrak shut down the Northeast corridor. But nevertheless, the miracles of Zoom, Steve Berman could still join us. Steve sold his. Yeah, sure. Steve Berman sold his first short story when he was a teenager and still has the urge to write some more. He's also a Lambda Literary Award-winning editor with almost 40 anthologies to his name. For the past 23 years, he's run Leffy Press, and he loves spooky, daring stories. Welcome, Steve Berman.
Thank you. Thank you. I was very sad about missing tonight because Michael Thomas Ford asked my help so that he could come out to his hairdresser after 3 decades. So I hope she finally realizes why you haven't met the right woman yet. Yeah. No. I know Michael for many years. And it was my chance to see him now that he's moved to the bright lights of Ohio. But in fact, today I was trying to schedule a flight to see him later in the year, and turns out that the city he gave me is really known for Athens is really for Athens, Georgia, not for Athens, Ohio. I could have ended up someplace totally different. I am going to be reading a short story from my last collection. I think it came out 2 years ago. It's called Fit for Consumption. And these are horror stories, but I'm not really going to read the horror element of it. This story called Unwelcome Boys, it's about a high school wrestler who is in the closet to everyone but his family. And he gets a chance to go to a summer camp for wrestlers. And he is never been in a relationship, never even kissed another boy. And it just so happens that there is an older boy there who's one of the proctors who he thinks has been taunting him, but it was more of a mutual admiration. And his secret has just come out to the other boy, Thatcher. And Thatcher, our hero's name is Terry, and Terry is trying to calm down. And so they're having a talk after what was a very awkward coming out scene. Terry watches with a sick fascination as Thatcher, sitting on the floor by the dresser, eats. Slices are devoured in ever larger bites, and tomato sauce and grease seeping from a topping of extra cheese repeatedly leaves the older boy's lips red and shiny, reminiscent of the girls his brother dates. Thatcher wipes his mouth and chin with the back of a hand. That hand then wiped on his gym shorts and the shirt between them, which says sweat equality, not sweat equity, and is apparently well familiar with the exchange, as there are ghosts of stains turning its front into a faded map. Lying on the bed helps Terry keep his distance both from pizza and Thatcher. Terry wants to ask Thatcher how he dodges scorn. There must be some cheat code that gives him this total abandon so he can flaunt being gay without losing the respect of teammates and coaches. How did he learn to time even winks and smirks? He's doing so right now, being charming, even though 10 seconds earlier he was lifting a nasty clot of mozzarella to his jaws, heedless of what was dripping down his collar. This wink and smirk are so perfect that Terry finds himself grinding a growing erection into the mattress. But why would Thatcher ever share the secret? So he asks the boy something lame. This is my 3rd year here, but first as a proctor, Thatcher says. A little pocket change earned while keeping my edge during summertime. Not a bad thing. Better than last year. I was a farmhand. Terry laughs. I bust tables at this restaurant, Blanche's. Thursday nights were the worst because they offered veterans this dish for only $5. He starts searching on his phone until he finds the right picture. He tosses it to Thatcher. Cream beef on toast. Thatcher's eyes widen. Ah, I don't know what that is. He's laughing, but it looks as lewd as it sounds. It's awful. And those nights, the whole place is filled with seniors asking for their SOS. A few of them don't mind asking the waitresses for shit on a shingle. By the time I clean up tables, the plates are slimy and the smell of that sauce. I swear, people eat disgusting things. Sometimes. Thatcher wipes his face more thoroughly. I think you don't like to eat. Terry looks down at the floor. Not much, no. The less he says on the matter while remaining honest, the better. If they don't see you eating more, Milburn will get worried. Terry shrugs. The man's not his real coach. Maybe I'll get worried too. I guess I'm all sorts of trouble for you. You are. The floorboards creak a little as Thatcher crawls over to the side of the bed so he can look up at Terry. Do your parents know? Me being gay? Yeah. The summer before middle school, I spent a lot of time getting in trouble in my neighborhood. Behind my house is a culvert, leads back and forth through the block. And at one end, there's a property that's fenced off. It's an old fence, mostly cracked posts and beams. There were plenty of shrubs planted there. They had this outdoor pool. And one day, I'm walking past and catch a glimpse. Brothers, both varsity football, going down the slide into the pool. Thatcher murmurs. Terry sighs. He hasn't told this to anyone before, and he wonders what happened to his resolve. And that night, all I could think about was the sight of those boys, all shiny and wet, slipping down that slide together. And I went back every day that week, and I would sneak onto their property, going a little bit closer each time until I was hiding in the bushes. And they saw me and chased me. Of course, I ran back to the edge of their yard, to the fence, and because I was so scared, I was careless, clumsy. I went through rather than over, and a rusty nail on the post just ripped me apart. I remember being covered in blood, and the brothers must have taken one look at this kid bleeding and shrieking, and they ran. Damn. I don't remember running home, but I guess I did. And the blood dripped all over the kitchen floor. My mother and brother were home, and they kept asking me what happened, but I didn't want to tell them. Ended up going to the emergency room and getting plenty of stitches, tetanus shot. And when my father came, I couldn't tell him everything, but I said enough. And he must have gone to the boys' house. And whatever he told them, Terry shrugs, they didn't tell anyone. I want to see it. Terry shakes his head. Please. He groans, but rolls and slides up the bottom of his shirt ever so slightly. Thatcher whistles. And they're okay with you being? Yeah, we don't talk about it much. So who do you talk with? Terry rolls onto his back. He thinks of the other boys at camp complaining about therapy, all the talk. Do you make your shirts? He asks. Change of topic. Okay. Do you like them? Kinda, yeah. I only started around the time I came out. I needed a statement. The first shirt looked awful. I only had a black Sharpie and wrote "riding time" across the front. And there were plenty of kids who looked at it and squinted and just didn't get it. Thatcher slapped Terry's thigh. Now I have a drawer full and better phrases. I keep hoping they'll raise some hackles, but this is a blue state, and the worst that happens is a lingering stare, which, if they want to do, I'll oblige them. He catches sight of Terry shaking his head. Trust me, the swole here will start flirting with me before the end of camp. Terry frowns. I call bullshit. But they do. Their testosterone-soaked brains actually crave attention, and they want to know if the gay kid thinks they're hot. Last year, some of the boys began stripping off their shirts right as I was walking by, hoping to make me do a turnaround. And a couple times, they'd come up to me in the weight room and flash their abs, asking me if they needed to do more dead bug reps. And nothing happened, right? Thatcher shrugs, but the corners of his lips say otherwise. Terry's stomach lurches off center. He doesn't want to hear such things, not when it's unfair, unwarranted for Thatcher to hook up with such guys. It's never worth it. My father always says, don't shit where you eat, and I like helping out here. But during the school year? Wait, you go to school here? You're rich? No, Thatcher seems bemused. My dad moved us here from South Jersey just to teach. He pays a fraction of what other parents do. No rich boyfriend? Terry means it sarcastically, but Thatcher doesn't seem bothered. The problem with academy boys is that they're thinking matriculation, not titillation, especially the 1%ers who never get serious. Why bother with a high school sweetheart when the plan is an Ivy League and trust fund just a few years off? I think about college. I want to go someplace far from Ohio. So no one will know the real you? They will. I just can't be the real me now. There's no one you want to date back in Archbold. Terry thinks for a moment. The only out kid at school is Mateo, who giggles a lot, wears pastel bow ties, and is surrounded by a protective orbit of other theater kids. It's not safe. Maybe, but it's got to be lonely. Terry rolls to the edge of the bed. Last year, a couple times, a girl would start asking her friend, who was sort of seeing a guy on the team. She wanted her to ask him to ask me if I was interested. It was like a math equation that's impossible to answer right. And they want you at the board trying as everyone watches. I told him I was too busy with training, too much homework, but now with cuffling season ahead, it's going to get spectacular. I can't be the only guy on varsity without a girlfriend. That'll look like you want dick. Thatcher stretches his arm, his fingers entwined, cracking knuckles. Don't act all surprised the girls are sweating you. Terry groans. Own your hotness, Thatcher says. You think I'm hot? Thatcher becomes fascinated with the open pizza box. Terry's pulse rises anew. You do! No, I think you're slanky. Eat a slice. Not after you slobbered over the pizza. Slobbered? Thatcher takes a slice and puts it in the palm of his hand, holding it aloft. Terry realizes he's approaching the bed with it and starts to scurry, but he's too late as Thatcher throws him onto the mattress, one hip and elbow pinning Terry to the sheets. The hand with the pizza hovers near Terry's face, even as he struggles pathetically, worse than his first bout against Thatcher, because Terry's low on gas and there's laughter bubbling up his throat. He can only clamp a hand over his mouth to stop both the sound and prevent Thatcher from shoving the slice into his face. Thatcher gets closer, enough so that those hanging bangs are a soft curtain brushing Terry's forehead. I'll trade you one bite for. He shifts atop Terry, inviting escape, but the younger boy remains motionless, intent on hearing the offer. Thatcher says it in almost a whisper. Whatever you want. Terry thinks this has cracked open his skull, and the thoughts are leaking out, and it will be impossible for him to scoop everything back inside to even comprehend what is happening. They stare at one another. Thatcher has hazel eyes. Terry slides his hand off his lips and parts his jaws a little, then a little more. Thatcher grins and moves so he can straddle Terry's waist. He lowers the slice, but stops just shy of reaching Terry's mouth. Terry has to lift his head from the mattress to take a bite. He chews slowly, the congealed cheese, and they're still watching each other almost cautiously. Terry thinks one bite isn't abandoning all reason, but a second. After he swallows, he shows his mouth is empty, ready for another bite. And Thatcher proceeds to feed him until there's only the crust left. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve Berman. Anyone else want to go out for pizza after this? Excuse me, appreciate you joining us. Should add a couple things before we go further. We are doing this again in 5 weeks-ish. February 21st, which I guess is a Thursday. So yeah, 5 weeks. And we'll have Kate Rounds, Lisa Gitlin, poet Kathy Wolf, who comes to us, by the way, via Eric Warner, the cartoonist, graphic novelist. And our special guest will be Felice Picano, who will be here live in person the day before his 80th birthday. So I'm hoping we will also add some other people in. It should be a very memorable day or evening. So please come. I don't know, maybe we'll have cake. Probably not, but never know. I also want to say one thing Mike Ford didn't mention is that in the small town in Ohio near the West Virginia border, he's also on the town council over there. And this is kind of, I mentioned this actually, I think in October or November reading, but many writers we've had come through here are also involved in civic affairs. Dale Corvino was here reading a few months ago. He's on community board 4 in Manhattan. Robin Geigel is involved with Garden State Equality. So in addition to the writing stuff, the people that are here, the people that are out there are also being very involved in the civic affairs. So, keep that in mind because it's important. It's not just, the words are important, but you can take it another step further. In addition, by the way, I should say, in addition to the February reading with Felice Picano and company, and I'll have Gerard Cabrera talk a bit more about a reading we're going to have on the afternoon of Saturday, February 3rd. But we also have March and May readings coming up. Also, in April, on the Monday the 15th and Tuesday the 16th, we'll have readings by finalists for the Publishing Triangle Awards. And on Wednesday, April 17th at 7 p.m. at the New School here in the Village, we will have the 36, I think, Carol. Yeah, I'm just making numbers up. The 75th the Publishing Triangle Awards, and let me just add, your admission to the Publishing Triangle Awards are free. Your admission to the post awards reception is free. And that is not a slam on any other queer literary group. I am just saying, we run a lean machine. It's me, Carol, Gerard, Paris Smith out in New Orleans, Ariana Abad here in New York, Emmanuel Xavier here in New York, and David Groff, of course. And that is, huh?
Jim Berg.
And I'm sorry, of course, and Jim Berg. That is the Publishing Triangle Steering Committee. We are the ones that are putting all the wheels in motion. And we are doing it all as volunteers. And so also it reminds me, if some of you are getting impatient, waiting for the judging and stuff, just be cool. We're on it. But I just want everyone to know, we are all volunteers. It has come together for more than 3 decades. It will continue to come together. We're all good.
Yeah.
So please stop the emails. Oh, one other thing, Ralph Ashworth, the killer of orchids. I looked it up while, at one point during a commercial break.
Where is he now?
Where is he now?
Where is he?
Yeah, I think one hit wonder, Anyway, okay, let's get back to our program. Speaking of commercial breaks, I know you're probably like, I would, please give us a commercial instead of that. Native New Yorker Anne Aptaker's Cantor Gold novels have won the Lambda and Goldie Awards. Her short stories have appeared in major crime and mystery fiction anthologies. Anne was a professor of art history and was an investigative report writer for a private investigations firm in California before returning to New York, where she now writes crime and mystery fiction full-time. She'll read tonight from her latest book, A Crime. You're involved with MWA here too, aren't you, Anne? Yeah, I've been a member of it. And Mike, of course, is on the national side too. I've been a member of MWA for, how long's it been since I've written? But, for that long, I have to get involved again, I have like three empty days a month, so I'm filling up. Anyway, tonight, Anne Aptaker will read from her latest book, A Crime of Secrets, an historical novel set in New York in 1899. Anne Aptaker.
Thank you, Rob. And you should get involved with MWA, with the Mystery Writers of America, and anybody else who you know. Oh, thank you. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Anybody else or if you know anybody who writes crime and mystery fiction, please have them get in touch or join MWA, because we need more queer representation in this national organization. So please do. As a matter of fact, today, the MWA's Edgar Award nominations were announced. And as far as I know, and I could be wrong, but as far as I know, there was one LGBT person, Rob Usler, who was nominated. So we need more representation. You have your work cut out for you. So yes, I'm going to read from A Crime of Secrets, which is sort of a departure for me. My previous novels and my short stories as well have all been very noir, taking place. The Cantor Gold series takes place in the 1950s. My short stories are contemporary, but they're all very much in the hard-boiled underworld experience for LGBTQ people. I wrote Crime of Secrets as an historical in 1899 because that period fascinates me. It's right on the cusp of the 20th century, with all the technological and industrial modernizing wonders that century will bring, as well as the horrors, of course, that the century brought. In New York, it was a very exciting time for many people because New York was modernizing very quickly. Skyscrapers started going up. The city was changing. It was very exciting if you could afford it. Nothing's changed. There was also still the gritty streets, the underbelly. The setting of The Crime of Secrets The protagonists are Finola Donner, who goes by the name of Finn Donner, who is a very tough bull butch dyke who was born and survived the slums of the West Side docks. Her lover and most beloved companion is really her opposite, Devorah Longstreet of the Fifth Avenue Longstreets, a society belle. Her family disowned her when she took up with Finn, which pained her very much, but of course, it's an old story. This still unfortunately continues to happen. They are private investigators, so they're very much women ahead of their time. In this book, they have a case where they're trying to solve the murder of a young woman. The case was brought to them or sent to them by the police department, believe it or not. The police didn't want to take the case, which is part of the mystery here. Why don't they want to take the case? It's most peculiar to Finn and Devorah because the police hate them. Because first of all, the police never like private investigators. And second of all, this is, a same-sex couple in 1899, and the conservative police don't really subscribe to this, let's say. So it's very unusual that the police department send Mr. and Mrs. Godfrey, that's the parents of the murdered girl, send Mr. and Mrs. Godfrey to Finn and Devorah to take over the case and find the murderer. So in this scene that I'm going to read, Devorah, this Fifth Avenue intellectual society dame, very educated, very cultured, very highborn, goes to the police headquarters on Mulberry Street, down Lower East Side, which at that time was populated largely by Eastern European immigrants, and of course the Chinese from Chinatown, which was abutting the area. Then, as now with immigrants, especially then, even more so then, but still in parts of this country and with certain populations of the country, the other is oppressed and so on. And so this is a world that Devorah certainly did not grow up in. She grew up in New York, but that part of New York is completely alien to her. And here she is walking into the police department, and you will see she bumps into this world quite there. Entering police headquarters only deepened Dev's misgivings. The long, dark hall running the length of the building was noisy with chatter and shrieks in foreign tongues from ragged men and women whose flushed and contorted faces bespoke their rage. Though Dev understood not a word of the emotion-choked babble of Eastern Europe, nor the knotted consonants and vowels of the Chinese, her sense of basic kinship to fellow human beings made it clear to her that the mob was complaining of horrid crimes against them or objecting to being pushed about roughly by policemen herding them downstairs to the infamously hellish cells in the basement. Making matters even more disagreeable were the phlegmy snores of the inebriated vagrants, male and female, in drunken slumber on the floor. Their odors of sour, whiskey-sodden breath, spit, sweat, tobacco, and unwashed bodies wafted around Dev as oppressively as a greasy cloak. Only her life with Finn, especially her beloved's patience and protection during Dev's first encounters in this harsh world, had prepared her to withstand the degradation she found here. She had early on reached the conclusion that the grinding misery and sometimes gruesome criminality of these people's lives was a blot on civilization, a blot sustained by her own uncaring society, which regarded these unfortunates as cheap labor at best and disposable when used up or their bodies no longer needed. Dev believed that only an open-hearted humanity, coupled with respect for these unfortunates and a determined effort to reform or even dismantle the systems which kept them under the boot, could bring relief to the city's slum dwellers and cleanse the blot. What's more, she further understood that danger lurked in the core of the situation. The souls of these impoverished men and women were acidic with rage, creating a population gnawing on its own meager flesh while craving the fuller, tastier flesh of the more privileged citizenry. That rage seethed tonight. Dev saw it in the eyes of these slum denizens whose stares lingered on Dev's fine garments. They looked at her brown wool cloak and supple black leather gloves in awe and envy as she walked through the crowd toward the uniformed sergeant sitting at a battered roll-top desk. The sergeant's thick, sweet potato bright hair poked out from beneath his tall blue helmet. His heavy mustache, mutton chop side whiskers framed his thin face, his skin yellowish behind the haze of stale tobacco smoke that hung in the air. But the sergeant's blue eyes twinkled when he saw the beautiful and crisply dressed woman approaching his premises. Such a refined woman was not the usual sort he dealt with in police work, and he intended to enjoy every moment of their coming encounter. Tipping the brim of his helmet and standing up to greet his elegant guest, he summoned his most impressive tone and manner. "And how may I help you now, miss?" His toothy smile was friendly beneath his mustache, which put Dev a little more at ease. She said, "Would you be kind enough to tell Detective Charles Paul that Miss Devorah Longstreet is here to see him?" Whereupon the sergeant's smile slowly reshaped itself into a sneer in recognition of her name. Ice between his teeth couldn't have made the sergeant's sneer any colder. Dev felt her skin would crack from the chill of the sergeant's disdain. But skin deep was as far as Dev would allow the man's ill will to penetrate. Her deeper nature, her heart and soul, were protected by her sense of responsibility to the grieving Godfreys, her belief in the legitimacy of her life and its pursuits, and by Finn's love. No one had better armor. Thank you.
And cat taker, thank you. Good point, though. Mr. Rose America, Romance Writers of America, any other groups that people belong to, we do need to get more visible. We need to stand up. We need to judge. We need to get to and get involved in our local chapters because we are part of that community. So good stuff. Okay, one more quick announcement. And this is sort of like, can you hear me? This is sort of, no, it's okay. It's okay, Greg. No, because Joe's short. We have not given out our Chesley Playwriting Award for many years, over a decade, but Chris Weichel was one of the, I think, a multiple-time winner, actually. His new play, Pride House, opens officially, has the big opening on, actually might be tonight, I don't know, but Saturday's the night I have marked in my calendar, from Tassos, which is the New York City's oldest and continually performing LGBTQ theater group. And you can go to tassosnyc.org for more information. They're celebrating their 50th anniversary this year. The play is all about 1938 Fire Island as a hurricane comes in. So what's not to love? Now on to our next reader. Joe Okonkwo wrote Jazz Moon, which was so good. And it was the winner of the Publishing Triangle Edmund White Award back in 17, 18?
It was published in 16.
Oh, okay. Back when I was just 28, I think. Joe served as prose editor for Newtown Literary and edited Best Gay Stories 2017. His story collection, Kiss the Scars on the Back of My Neck, was an independent book publisher's silver medalist in the LGBTQ fiction category. Please welcome Joe Okonkwo.
Hello, everyone. Thank you. So this story is called Fluff. It's from my collection, Kiss the Scars on the Back of My Neck. A little bit of context. The narrator of the story has been out of work for a couple of years, and he's getting desperate. He's about to be evicted from his apartment. Every interview he goes to ends up being a disaster. Earlier in the day, before the story starts, he had his weed delivery. Like, he's getting evicted, but he can still afford weed, right? And the weed delivery driver gave him a card with an address on it and said, if you need a job, go to this address and see what happens. And he has no idea what the job is. So he goes, and here we go. Flowers flared out of window boxes up and down tree-lined Union Street in Park Slope, Brooklyn. Clinging leafy vines scrabbled up brownstones. Couples in Birkenstocks pushed designer strollers with gurgling brats decked out in outfits way pricier than mine. Chicks in leggings traipsed by carrying yoga mats and vegan, gluten-free, sugar-free, caffeine-free, soy, mocha chai, frappuccino lattes. Politically correct vegetables like kale, probably bought at the neighborhood organic food co-op or picked at the community garden, spilled over the top of some guy's recycled canvas shopping tote. Excuse me. Geez, I thought, stereotypical Park Slope bougies. Fuck me. I stopped in front of a 4-story brownstone. The address matched the one on the card. I walked up the steps and into the vestibule. Young guy inside, psychedelic tattoos scorched each arm from shoulder to wrist, with a few scalding his hands. Bowler hat, muscle shirt, skinny jeans, shaggy beard that reached his crotch. He leaned against the wall next to the buzzer panel. He was reading Leaves of Grass by Walt Whitman. He looked like Whitman with that beard. Sup, dude, he said. Who you here to see? I'm here about a job. A woman sent me. I showed him the card. Dude, he said, you got this from one of our best talent scouts. Go on in, 2nd floor, talk to personnel, welcome aboard. He startled me when he pulled me into a broy half hug. He pushed a button on the panel. We got a live one, he said into the speaker. The door buzzed open. The apartment doors were all closed. The pale lighting and tacky floral wallpaper crackling off the walls made the place feel ancient. That stale bathroomy odor of ramshackle pre-war buildings wafted through the place. I heard a voice from somewhere at the end of the hall. The scuffed wood floors creaked as I followed the voice. I peeked inside the room. Someone was shuffling through a file cabinet while chit-chatting on a phone wedged between shoulder and ear. The person on the phone was a black drag queen with an afro the size of Jupiter. She wore red stilettos. Without the heels, she was at least 6'5", with them close to 7 feet. Her mountain build, 2 parts muscle, 1 part flab, was wrapped in a clingy red dress that ended just above the knees. Her chest bulged out. I couldn't tell if it was a godly set of pecs, baggy man breasts, or falsies. She hung up the phone, kept shuffling through the files. You gonna stay in that goddamn door all fucking day? She said. Where's your ass gonna say something? An associate of yours said you're hiring? Here's my resume if you'd like to. I swallowed. Take a look. Her hips bumped hard and slow as she made her way to me. She plucked the resume out of my hand, tore it in a million pieces, tossed the shreds in the air, and plopped her mountain ass on top of the desk. She gouged something out of her teeth with her finger, inspected it, and flicked it away. She primped her massive fro, crossed her arms, and glared at me. One hand cupped her chin like she was contemplating, evaluating. My eyes went to her feet. The stilettos were so red and licorice slick, my mouth watered. The drag queen looked me over from head to chest to crotch to thighs to feet and all the way back up. She nodded, found my crotch again. Her mouth swelled in a lecherous smile. You older than what we usually hire, but you're more than due. 25 bucks an hour. You start now. Go up to the 3rd floor. Tell them personnel sent you. Just like that? No reference check, background check, credit check, drug test. Oh, fuck, I hope there wouldn't be a drug test. Paperwork, tax forms, hell, what about an interview? After the 1.5-year drought that had ransacked my savings, I was jumping up and down inside. This was too good to be true. I didn't even know what the job was, but I was broke. I was getting evicted. Tell me about the job, I said, and the training. She yawned. Child, you want this job or not? They need you on the 3rd floor. Go, now. The stairs creaked. Voices drifted down and music, pulsing synthesized pop. Think disco balls, grinding pelvises. The sounds led to a bright room crowded with cameras, lights, cables, sound equipment, and a crew buzzing around a bed topped with 2 mega muscular naked guys. A ginger, a peroxide blonde. Ginger on his knees getting done from behind by Blondie. Someone barked, "Cut!" A 5-foot-tall guy in a beret approached the bed. His pants were stuffed into black boots that came up to his thighs. He looked 80. An ice cream cone has more heat than this scene, he yelled. What's the problem, guys? Blondie sat on the edge of the bed. He gestured at his lap. I need some help down here. His voice was deep and gruff and brutalized by a New York accent that wallowed in his mouth like lumpy gravy. He sounded like a garbage man from the Bronx. You'll have to help yourself for now, the old man said. He checked his watch. And hurry, we're on a deadline. Blondie stood up. I get a fluffer. It's in my fucking contract. We're understaffed. Personnel hasn't hired anyone yet. Then you pussies are in breach of contract and I'm walking off this shit film. How you like them fucking apples? Whoa. Hold the phone. Who dat? He'd seen me. So had the crew. They wolf whistled and ogled and smooched their lips. Did personnel send you? The old man said. I stammered, yes. Finally, he said. What the hell are you waiting for? Get over there. Was there equipment he needed me to haul? Sets or props to move? Lights to hang? Over where? Blondie plunked down on the edge of the bed. Ginger plunked next to him. They looked at each other, then spread their legs at the exact same time, super wide, dicks hanging like slabs of raw meat in a butcher shop window. Over here, sweetheart, Blondie said. I was still in the doorway, half in, half out of the room. Personnel said, I had asked about training. Blondie and Ginger licked their lips. Blondie said, ain't you heard of on-the-job training, sweetheart? Thank you.
If you are among, first of all, if you're among the 20 or so people here, then you heard that laughter. If you're among the dozens watching right now on YouTube, you probably haven't heard it, but I hope you're laughing at home. And for the scores more that will be watching in the future, let me just say, Joe, actually, none of you are leaving without signing books for me, okay? But Joe just went to the top of the pile. And that brings us to our last reader. You're not done with me yet, but we do. Gerard Cabrera is a naturalized New Yorker from Springfield, Massachusetts, the birthplace of the first American dictionary, Dr. Seuss, and basketball. His debut novel, Homo Novus, was published in October 2022. And tonight, he'll be reading from The Sharing Economy, taken from his work in progress, the short story collection. Please welcome. Oh, and of course, Gerard is also on the board of the Publishing Triangle, another hardworking volunteer that is making all this happen for the queer literary world. Not to make us too big of a deal. Please welcome Gerard Cabrera.
Thank you, Rob, and thank you everyone for coming out tonight on a cold Thursday. It's a real pleasure to be here with all these great readers. But before I start, I want to just invite everyone to an incredibly special and exciting event on February 3rd that's going to happen here. Join an all-star lineup for the New York City book launch of Cuentos Completos, a celebration of the works of the legendary gay diasporic Puerto Rican writer Manuel Ramos Otero, edited by Arnaldo Cruz Malave. Readers will include Gianna Braschi, myself, Lawrence LaFontaine Stokes, Lena Marijuane, Oscar Robles, and our other Publishing Triangle board member, Emmanuel Xavier. The event is going to be hosted by the Bureau and co-sponsored by the Publishing Triangle, this center, the LGBTQ Community Center, the Institute of Puerto Rican Culture in San Juan, Puerto Rico, and Hunter College Center for Puerto Rican Studies, which is part of the City University of New York. If no one's ever heard of Manuel Ramos Otero, if you come on February 3rd, you will fall in love with his writing. And it will be a bilingual event because most of his work has not been translated into English, but some of it has. And there will be readings in English, and there will be a Q&A, and books will be for sale. So I invite everyone to join on that day. Thank you. So moving on to the sharing economy. The chief was Hanno Tiffel, and once upon a time he had aspired to leadership. But after languishing at the head of various sub-departments, divisions, sections, and bureaus, he'd fallen into the indifference of middle management and considered it a job well done whenever he hit the forward button on an email. A convert to Catholicism upon his second marriage to the canon lawyer Mixta Clark, who had represented him in the annulment of his first union, with a weekend home in Sag Harbor and a few years away from maxing out on his pension, he was perfectly happy to let history take the rudder. That was until Stanislaw Brandy, who had arrived after the great real estate bust of '08. Through unknown contacts higher up the decision tree, he had been made Tiffel's deputy and had immediately begun a second career out of second-guessing his boss. Although he dreamed of a triumphant return to Mortgages R Us, he hedged his bets. He wanted Hanno Tiffel's job, or at least his pay grade. So he held Tiffel in contempt when he wasn't kissing his fanny. But the real trouble began one day on the carpeted strip that passed between the glassed-in managerial suite and the field of cubicles where all us subalterns were crammed in like veal calves. It was known as the Perp Walk because of the motion-triggered video cameras that had been installed under a new workplace incentive program. Fitbits had been handed out as gifts to all staff, and a post-tax penalty was assessed based on the number of steps after the 1500th. However, if you didn't get past 500 steps, you were automatically entered into a lottery for an end-of-year bonus in Bitcoin, a sort of company script. Stanislaw Brandy stopped me as I passed his area on the way to my lunch break. He came out from behind his desk and pointed at the Fitbit, which I had decided to wear with my ID on a lanyard around my neck. Tuning up your sexy phone, La Jolla? He asked. Pardon? Saxophone. I said, it looks like a tuner for a saxophone. But I caught his little lapsus linguae. No, Mr. Brandy, I responded cautiously. It's my ID and Fitbit. Ha, that's funny, he said, and just looked at me, eating pistachios while he leaned against his doorframe. Nice threads, he added. That day, I was wearing a green Glen plaid three-piece from a sample sale, but had left the jacket hanging from the single hook allotted me as a new hire. We talked about different vest styles and necktie widths for a minute. After we'd run out of things to say, I asked, is there anything else, Mr. Brandy? Nothing else, he said, and smiled while he shook the empty nutshells cupped in his palm with a gesture that could have been taken for shaking a martini or something much lewder than I prefer to imagine. Well then, I'll be going on my way, I said as merrily as I could and began to walk away. Brandy didn't move, and I thought I caught him checking out my ass. I took my 15-minute break in the staff room standing up because management had decided chairs were too suggestive of leisure. It was my third week on the job, temp to perm, and I was still getting the feel for it. From what I could make out, everybody worked on the same vast floor in the same division of a large department in an important but obscure government contractor's office. Obscure, not because it was secret or trendy, but because it was specialized and dull and hard to explain. We processed things there, documents and copies of things with acronyms such as ARCOs, BFAs, raisins, and DDs. People needed these pieces of paper in order to get other pieces of paper so that the system could run without a glitch. And to that purpose, everyone was supposed to work together to be able to perform everyone else's job. It was all part of a new job-sharing paradigm. In fact, no one was allowed to claim any personal work product. Maybe that was why no one knew what was going on. No one but Hanno Tiffel and Stanislaw Brandy seemed to understand, but they had private offices. On my way back from my lunch, I had to pass the glass booths again, and this time Hanno Tiffel called me into his office. He asked me to sit down across from him, which I did. Was I being pink-slipped so soon? I saw you speaking with Mr. Brandy, he said. On the productivity monitor, he said, pointing at a bank of screens on one of his walls. Yes, Mr. Tiffel, I answered. He's a very interesting person, I said, trying to think of something to say. Is that so? Yes, it seemed as if I'd given the wrong answer. After staring at me for an uncomfortably long time, he asked, what are you doing Saturday night? His question didn't quite register. I'm not sure, I told him. It's just that I have an extra ticket to Hamilton. The play? My face felt flushed all of a sudden. The play. Really? We had hardly ever spoken before, and yet he could only think of me. Naturally, it appealed to my vanity. I can think of no one who would appreciate it more than an HH. HH? Hispanic hire. Oh. Can we go, please? Please say yes, he said, deepening his voice. It's a hip-hop musical. The woman looked at me. Hamilton tickets were impossible to come by. Who wouldn't want to see something no one else could see? What do you say? He asked again. Sí se puede. I love that, Hanno Tiffel replied, laughing and punching the air, exciting me the way only Wayne Brady made me feel. Well, the play was underwhelming, but the seats were excellent, and Hamilton spit or sweat landed on me once, and everyone gasped and watched to see whether I'd collect it in a vial or lick it or something. But I had never been good at monetizing. Wasn't it great? Hanno Tiffel wanted to know. The best, I said. Let's get a drink and discuss. Why not? And so we did. We drank at Anderson Cooper's ex-lover's boîte de nuit, and it was all terribly chic. We drank some more at Alan Cummings' club, where Cummings sat barfly-like on a stool, dunking bread rolls into a plastic tumbler of potato vodka. Hanno Tiffel showed me wallet photos of his family and told me treacly stories about his progeny. This made me feel superior, and I got grabby, of course, having been at this Take My Wife Please rodeo a few too many times. He protested just a little bit, but we made out for a while, and although he wasn't a bad kisser, the booze helped a lot. Oh, I don't know what's come over me, and all the rest of it. We went into the back room for a while, and when that wasn't enough, we went back to the office and used the conference room. The carpeting rasped like a loofah. When the exfoliation was all over, he asked me to spend the night. Here? I was incredulous. No hot stuff at a hotel. I'm not ready to say goodnight. I don't know what's come over me. Let's ride share it over to the Brooklyn Marriott. It's romantic. Oh, Hanno, mi amor, I said, I would love to, but what about your wife and kids? They're at my mother-in-law's. So much for that dodge. Thank you.
Okay, oh God. I don't know, there might be competition now, Joe. Okay, as Gerard mentioned, February 3rd, this is Gerard, great idea for this reading on February 3rd. I love that it's going to be bilingual. I will only understand half if I'm lucky, but I will be here and I want the rest of you to be here too. This is going to be, I mean, I think this is, you know, look, we're trying to be, not trying to be, we are attuned to the voices out there that we need to promote, and I think this is going to be a perfect example of what we should be doing out there. February 21st, remember Felice Picano and Company. April 17th, remember our award ceremony and reception, free. And finally, remember, be like David Ketterly for $40.
Come on, right over to YouTube.
Except for they can't hear me. Never mind. For 40, less than $1 a week. You can be a member of the Publishing Triangle, like Michael Thomas Ford, among others, and help support us in our volunteer efforts to promote queer literature around the English-speaking world. So thank you all for being, oh, and also, yeah, remember, shop independent and support independent bookstores like the Bureau of General Services, which happens to be a nonprofit. Remember, tax deductible. And but when you buy books, buy them from independents if you can. We have one of the reasons a lot of our sales have dropped dramatically. I'm speaking personally, okay, but whatever. Is because of the lack of queer and independent bookstores over the last 15 years, which has bottomed out, you know, fighting the noise on Amazon. I used to complain about fighting the noise at Barnes and Noble. Now it feels quaint. Fighting the noise at Amazon is ridiculous when anybody can throw a book out and there are no cops and, or gatekeepers. So, remember your local bookstores are the ones that are curating these and hand selling books. So support them. And with that, thank you all. And what a great lineup. Thank you all. One more time, of course, Felice Cohen. Michael Thomas Moore. Steve Berman. Ann Aptaker. Joe Okonkwo. And Gerard Cabrera. Thank you.
Yeah. Steve, stay on. We'll include you in the group photo.
Yeah.
How do let's see.
I know.
Greg, I have some new books to send you.
What's that?
I have some new books to send you.
Oh, okay. So I look behind me because the speaker's there. All right. This will do. Can't figure out how to make.
Oh, you're trying to get them up the screen? Or?
Yeah, how do I? Stop many on chat because da.
You know what? There was a guy on the hours.
So we're getting the readers up?
Huh?
We're getting the readers.
Yeah,
up?
readers and Carol. And Johnny.
Oh, yeah, that's a good idea.
Oh, I thought this was trying to.
We'd stand.
You doing the movies?
And in the summer, we'd stand. there.
Yeah,
So-
it's so hot. Get your picture taken.
Picture. Group picture. Theoretically, there's a huge Steve Berman behind you.
Yes, there he is.
Is he curious? How do you, is everyone up?
Yeah.
Oh, well, Greg, too. Okay.
Who's taking the picture?
Can we have another somebody to take a picture for us?
And I'm like, yeah, but.
Make sure everybody's.
With Steve.
Okay, all right.
Okay. One more,
Yeah.
little side eye.
That works?
Looks great. I'll send it out.
All right, thank you.
All right, good night, Steve.
Good night.